Feel free to return to our channel at any time. In a dimly lit room, the poet Donovan, who was famous in the 1960s for his poetic mysticism and peaceful melodies, sits. His voice is measured but heavy with the things he has never shared. He had been an unassuming bystander to the golden era of rock and roll for a long time, even though he had crossed paths with its biggest stars like the Beatles. However, he has decided to reveal an unpopular aspect of the Fab Four today. The portrayal of jealousy, tension, and competitiveness by Donovan is shockingly honest. Something far different from the idyllic image the Beatles presented to the public. Imagine the height of Donovan's and the Beatles' success in the mid-1960s. Donovan had established himself as a representative of his generation with the successes such as Sunshine Superman and Catch the Wind. At the same time, the groundbreaking sound of the Beatles was making waves around the globe. Their friendship appeared sincere to onlookers. They went to India to learn meditation with the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and Donovan even went on that famous journey with them. But Donovan says there was a lot more going on behind the scenes. Among the Beatles, especially John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Donovan felt a subtle sense of envy. Reportedly, Lennon took offense to the comparisons drawn between the two musicians when Donovan's music started to rise in the charts. The thought of someone else being perceived as being on par with them is too much for them to bear, Donovan confides. Lennon, known for his famous wit and competitive spirit, saw Donovan's success as a danger rather than an opportunity. Donovan and John Lennon frequently clashed due to Lennon's explosive personality and his exceptional songwriting skills. Although they respected each other's work as artists, Lennon's insecurities shone through in his scathing comments and subtle criticisms of Donovan's. As a result of Lennon's shadow side, a combination of sarcasm and self-doubt, their discussions would occasionally devolve into heated confrontations. While in India, they had one of the most heated exchanges. Donovan wholeheartedly followed the Maharishi's spiritual advice, but Lennon became more and more skeptical and even mocked the whole thing. Because Lennon's actions shattered the group's unity and brought attention to Lennon's inner conflicts, Donovan felt a mix of frustration and sadness. George Harrison, the reserved Beatle, had a special bond with Donovan due to their shared appreciation of Eastern music and philosophy. However, tension could still enter even this link. Harrison continued to explore his spiritual path. His criticism of Donovan and others around him grew more harsher. The egotistical world of celebrity and Harrison's quest for enlightenment are depicted by Donovan as incompatible. There was an undercurrent of treachery in their arguments, even though they were not as heated as those with Lennon. As a fellow seeker of spiritual enlightenment, Harrison, according to Donovan, frequently took out his anger on people closest to him, including Donovan. Paul McCartney appeared to be the rock and roll industry's golden boy, a magnetism that looked as natural as his talent for writing catchy songs. Donovan had a peak of a darker, more cold side, nevertheless, beneath this polished veneer. McCartney was a control freak at heart, and his obsession with perfection meant that he rarely allowed anyone to be vulnerable or work together. Donovan, who had been enchanted by McCartney's genius before, started to notice the holes in his meticulously built persona. There was an unseen burden in their relationship, even if they were friendly in public. With calm yet incisive speech, McCartney carefully asserted dominance. During their chats, he would subtly compliment Donovan while simultaneously criticizing his ideas or flat-out reject them. These weren't gratuitous jabs, but rather strategic maneuvers that solidified McCartney's status as the unchallenged boss in every room he graced. Even if Donovan hadn't meant to be seen as a competitor in McCartney's eyes, these occasions served as silent reminders of his position. The intense desire on McCartney's part to maintain his reputation as the preeminent songwriter in the world clouds their relationships. Fans were ecstatic with Donovan's meteoric climb to the top of the charts, but McCartney didn't appear to share their enthusiasm, viewing Donovan's success as an attack on the pedestal he had worked so hard to achieve. Underneath each gathering, this unsaid tension was building. Each and every one of our recorded sessions and moments together, there was a hint of competitiveness even in McCartney's seemingly genuine kindness. He was able to keep people at arm's length while simultaneously luring them near because to his captivating charisma and commanding presence. This paradox was intriguing and irritating to Donovan. Once characterized by mutual admiration, McCartney's subtle but relentless drive to remain ahead damaged their connection. The fact that McCartney's ambition frequently cost them their relationship was the most painful aspect for Donovan, not the ambition itself. Disdainful remarks and subtle slights served as a constant reminder that egotism could weaken even the most solid relationships. McCartney's genius was obvious, but it came at a price, a wall that prevented genuine companionship. Donovan felt both encouraged and constrained by McCartney's shadow. His obsession with perfection, which helped him achieve greatness, also drove a wedge between him and everyone else, not even his closest buddy. Collaboration and subtle rivalry coexisted in this dynamic, which was characterized by extremes of warmth and coldness, respect and animosity. In the midst of it all, Donovan had to figure out how to deal with a man whose drive and brilliance were equally intimidating. The inner turmoil that the Beatles experienced in their last years is further illuminated by Donovan's revelations. As a result of infighting and creative differences, the once uniform group was beginning to fall apart. After years of working together harmoniously, Lennon and McCartney were now engaged in a power struggle over who would lead the band. As Ringo Starr tried to defuse the situation, long-relegated Harrison became more and more resentful of his little creative say. According to Donovan, who was there during some of these confrontations, the ambience was electric but fragile, a dynamic that resulted in brilliant ideas but also caused lasting wounds. Their rivalries and strained relationships with other bands were just as much a part of the Beatles' inner turmoil as anything else they faced in the music industry. They were so determined to maintain their position at the top that it stunted their already rapid ascent to fame. Because of their inflated sense of self-importance, they frequently put their classmates down, made fun of them, or ignored them altogether. The Rolling Stones took the heaviest criticism from the Beatles when they wanted to prove who was better. The general public saw these two heavy hitters from British rock as cordial competitors, both making their mark on popular culture. However, things were different when no one was around. Famously, Lennon used his biting wit to call the Stones a pale copy, a band that will always be in the shadow of the Beatles. There was a larger trend of minimizing the accomplishments of their contemporaries, and these comments weren't just casual ones. When the Beatles came out with seminal albums like Sgt., their animosity toward the Stones went beyond words. The Beatles' camp scorned Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the Stones' reaction to their Satanic Majesty's request, because they thought it was an uninspired attempt to recreate their success. Even McCartney, renowned for his diplomatic charisma, shared Lennon's feeling of superiority. His impression of the Rolling Stones was that they were too imitative and lacked the originality that he thought the Beatles had perfected. Still, they weren't aiming solely at the Rolling Stones. When the Beatles' competitive nature got the best of other musicians, it strained relationships that could have been built on mutual respect, according to Donovan. The Beach Boys, whose album Pet Sounds greatly impacted the Beatles' own Revolver, were underappreciated. Rather, the quiet but tangible desire to outdo the Beatles and demonstrate that no one could match their innovative genius accompanied their success. They were ambitious even toward Donovan. Even though they were buddies, he frequently felt like a piece in their struggle for musical supremacy. In private, they were controlling and expected Donovan's achievement to never be more prominent than their own, even though they publicly lauded his work. Despite all they accomplished, the Beatles seemed paranoid and possessed a fear of being overshadowed, which made them defend their dominion at any expense. Relationships were shattered and tensions remained as a result of this dogged pursuit. The Beatles' competitive spirit caused schisms that were just as long-lasting as their legacy, despite the fact that their genius set them distinct. Everyone who came into contact with them found the experience to be very moving and humbling. A sobering reminder that the demands of maintaining stardom may affect even the most formidable bands. According to Donovan, the group's brilliance was obvious, but their drive often got in the way of the friendship they had worked so hard to foster. As a band whose music did more than just define a generation, it altered the cultural terrain of the 20th century. The impact of the Beatles on subsequent generations is immense. The harmony that appeared to bring the globe together betrayed the discord of four individuals engaged in a struggle against powers greater than themselves. An astonishing and profoundly personal story emerges when Donovan, who was previously close to this iconic group, lifts the curtain. Architects of a musical revolution, the Beatles had their albums hailed as classics and their image preserved in history books. However, the toll of their dogged ambition is revealed in Donovan's story. The group's internal strife over ambition was the driving force behind their revolutionary music and catchy tunes. An insurmountable storm formed due to the intertwining forces of their own personalities, the relentless demands of continual innovation, and the pressures of worldwide recognition. The difference between their public image and their personal hardships was extreme for Donovan. Their connection was powerful and flawless, and they were a formidable presence on stage. In the wings, for people were negotiating a personal, emotional minefield. Despite his incisive mind and caustic humor, Lennon frequently concealed a profound fragility. Although it is a motivating factor, McCartney's obsession with perfection may drive a wedge between him and his loved ones. Spirituality served as both a haven for Harrison and a schism among the group. The other's tensions frequently caught Starr, who was stable and amiable, in the crosshairs. They worked together to make magic, but their friendships were strained and their resentment went unspoken even after the music had stopped. From Donovan's vantage point, the band's genius resulted from their disagreements as much as from their unity. Not only did their internal conflict inspire them to be creative, but their rivalry with the outside world as well. They accomplished more than they ever thought possible because of the stresses that almost tore them apart. Their captivating journey and immortal song were shaped by this dichotomy, the balance between harmony and discord. However, their tale is more than just a triumphant one. This is a story about the fallibility of human beings, about brilliant guys who were yet flawed and vulnerable just like the rest of us. It is through adversity that even the most legendary figures are molded, and Donovan's thoughts serve as a poignant reminder of this. Despite their many accomplishments, the Beatles' path was marked by relentless pressure and personal sacrifices, serving as a sobering reminder that achieving greatness is not always easy.